Hello guys, Saltini here, back with another video after 1 month, 3 weeks hiatus, but it's okay. Ever since I left, there have been three new champions added. So with the addition of Warwick, Aatrox, and Kayn, I thought, why not make a jungle tier list, considering all these champions can be played in the jungle. So for all those who don't know me, I am Saltini. I am the leader of BYG, or said BYG. BYG is dead. I am a Grandmaster jungle player that used to play competitive for quite a long time. My peak is 660 LP. Without further ado, let's get right into the tier list. Before we start, I just wanted to mention that my main criteria for the tier list is how well a champion performs inside of solo queue. So I'm not really looking at the competitive aspect of it, but for the most part, what is broken in competitive is also broken in solo queue. So it's kind of hand in hand, but there are some picks that'll obviously be better in solo queue that aren't picked, if at all, in pro play. But I'm basing it off of A, how well it can do in solo queue, B, how well it can carry, and C, if you can't carry in a way, how do you benefit your team with this jungle pick? Okay, so starting off our tier list, we have D tier, the don't play my game tier, and we have Tryndamere and we have Warwick. I think Warwick is arguably the worst champion in the game as of right now in 3.5. When Warwick was released, as opposed to his PC counterpart, a lot of his stats and his passive are just lower, and Warwick gets to play the game for about 7 minutes and then he does absolutely nothing. He has a pretty good early game, can basically 1v1 any jungler at level 3, but then after that he brings nothing to the table. His farming is not something to be proud of. His fighting potential is after he gets one item. His ulti is okay but can be interrupted, and his lifesteal is just not as good as it is on PC. Now moving on to Tryndamere. I don't want to spend too long on these champions in the lower echelon of characters because I know people are really here for the S tiers, the A tiers, you know what I'm saying? So we're just going to go through this really quickly. So Tryndamere is not good. He does a lot of damage, but that's after he gets like a new car's worth of items. It takes too long. And then on top of that, Tryndamere can be kited, and his ulti doesn't bring anything to the team. He is a selfish character. And that is why Tryndamere is in D tier. Now, moving on to C tier, we have Sion and Dr. Mundo. I feel like I don't have to talk about why Dr. Mundo is not good. He is a tank, he is somewhat tanky, he has very little damage, and there are just better tank junglers. Sion, on the other hand, he was really good on release, then they nerfed how much his passive gave him from taking Krugs, because Krugs used to give him a lot, because he gets more HP, and that's what he scales off of. But ever since they nerfed that, I think Sion jungle is just not very good. Okay, moving on to B tier, which is the mid/niche tier. These are champions where you can sometimes choose them in certain circumstances, but not really too much on a consistent basis. And since we have a lot of champions in here, I'm just going to go through it a little quicker. So at the very bottom, we have Fizz. See, when Fizz was given exponential buffs to be in the jungle, to his passive, everybody thought that Fizz was going to be crazy OP, like really insane, right? But then Fizz turned out to be just very meh. Because sure, he had damage to the jungle, but his farming was still slow. His E was not AoE at the time. So, and he just used a lot of mana. But he could gank very well, I could say that. With his ulti, he was on a very low cooldown, and he could gank very well, and that's kind of all he had going for him. Now, moving on, we have Shen. Shen down here in the B tier. Shen, I think, is actually a relatively decent jungler, but when you put it in the essence of solo queue, now you're putting the game in the hands of somebody else that you want to carry. Because what Shen can do is he could, let's say, he could gank bottom, get 1-2 kills, and then instantly ult top, And he has so much map range. He can always be there. He can split bottom. If this team's fighting for dragon, he can alter the dragon, and he can just be very useful. But he is a tank jungler, so he's a slow jungler. And on top of that, he has to make sure somebody else on his team can, like, it's like a handoff when you're playing a tank jungler. You will do what you can in the early game so that later your team can make up for your investment. You know what I'm saying? Next up, we have Pantheon. See, Pantheon's early game is very good. He can hit level 3, and then his ganking potential is just boom, stun, damage, can we kill? Yes or no? So he's a really good spam ganker, kind of like Lee Sin, but he gets to layer the CC very early. He arguably has less damage than Lee Sin, but the problem with him is that he falls off 10 times harder. Pantheon just becomes a stun bot and a smite bot in a later game, and he does not do anything. So moving on, we have Master Yi, and I feel like we all know the problem with Master Yi is, well, it's Master Yi. I mean, surprisingly, he's not as bad as he used to be after the buffs that he got, and he's not as broken as he used to be after that bug with his Q, where he would farm faster than every single jungle in the game. So Master Yi, I think right now is just in a good spot. If you give Master Yi an early game and you let him farm, he will carry the game. If you control the Master Yi's tempo, then he won't do shit the entire game. Moving on, we have Graves. Graves is Omega mid with no items that they can build in League in Wild Rift. Graves is missing out on a lot. And then on top of that, Graves' AD scaling in Wild Rift to me is lackluster. There was a time when Graves was OP when they buffed his AD scaling exponentially, but they've since reverted that, and now I think he's just back to being mid and or niche. Coming in next, we have Rammus. Now, okay, don't get me wrong, Rammus is an okay jungler. He has a lot of tempo with his first skill, his ulti. He can definitely spam gank. But my problem with Rammus is he has no smite secure. A lot of these other champions don't have smite secures, but I feel like Rammus's is especially bad, and he can get everything stolen from him. And then on top of that, tank junglers in this meta right now are more of like a lower elo thing. Don't get me wrong, you can play almost whatever you want in solo queue, but it's still solo queue, and you want to be the one carrying the team on your back and have the game in your terms, and not give it to ADC player 445 so they can run down your game. Now moving on, we have Jax. Now Jax used to 100% be S or A tier in the jungle, but after the amount of Jax that was played in, I believe it was it Worlds? It was Worlds or the tourney before that. The amount of Jax that was played, I guess, just didn't sit right with Riot. So they've since nerfed Jax jungle so that he can be played as a side laner. You don't get stacks anymore off of jungle mobs, so he doesn't jungle as fast. Granted, in this new update, they made jungling faster for everybody, so you can still play Jax in the jungle, but it is nowhere near what he used to be. Now we have Nautilus jungle. There's a lot of contention about this pick, and I think my problem with Nautilus jungle is, don't get me wrong, he has a lot of, I think Nautilus is a insane character, but I think he's just better as a support. Why would I take Nautilus as my jungler when I can take him as my support and then play something that has a better smite and something I can combo with that Nautilus? So when it comes to early game, all of that, Nautilus is a good pick, but personally I would not play this in the jungle. I would play it in support. And next up we have Zed. Zed has been rising very recently, especially with the Triforce second build to increase his farm. And now that farming is a lot easier for all the jungles, I think Zed might have a place to shine. So I think this pick probably has the most potential to go up if it gets any jungle buffs at all, like how it was really good on PC. So for right now, I'm just going to leave it in B tier, but I think this pick out of everyone has the potential to be A or S tier. And then finally at the top, I actually have a Mumu here. I think a Mumu, after his multiple buffs, is actually a really good champion. Obviously not as good as the A or S tiers, but I think he can be quite consistent and not like the meme crying emo boy that we all thought he was. And finally, we are at A tier. These are your stable picks. These are picks that you could play just every single game if you really wanted to. Granted, you could play the other champions every single game, but they're more niche picks. I would only play them if I wanted to counter pick something that looked good into my team. So coming in at last, we have Rangar. Rangar has been nerfed into garbage. He's a shell of what he used to be. After Bruiser Rangar was terrorizing solo queue and competitive, Riot wanted to put a stop to it. So they nerfed Sunderer and they nerfed Rangar. They nerfed Rangar's W. They apparently fixed the bug about his W. And then they nerfed Death's Dance. So now Bruiser Rangar is... you can still play it, and I still think that's the best iteration of Rangar. I don't think Crit Rangar is... I just think it's not good right now. Like, 9 times out of 10, you're not directly one-shotting somebody. You'll get them close to one-shot, but then you yourself can also be one-shot, and I think it's not that good. So I still think Bruiser Rangar is the best version of Rangar, but Bruiser Rangar right now is just not what it used to be. So I do think he is at the bottom of A tier. Next, we have J4. J4 is a stable pick, very good level 3 pick, has early game tempo, can definitely help his team. Obviously, he's not a carry jungler, but what J4 brings to the table is he has very good steals. His E can always give vision of the dragon, Baron, all of that. Plus, when you EQ, it's instant damage for you to smite off of. His ganking, if you're ever going against champions that don't have mobility, you just click R, your team follows up, they die, and that's just what J4 brings to the table. That's why I put him in A tier. Next, we have Echo. After Echo got his jungle buffs, I would put him S tier, but since then they have nerfed him 3 different times in the jungle, which literally just brought his Q damage to the jungle mobs down and down every single time, and now he's back to what he was on release. So even though jungle as a whole got buffed as to where everyone can clear it easier, Echo also got nerfed in the same patch, so he's back to what he was when he was released. So Echo is meh. The only thing keeping Echo here in A tier is just the amount of scaling the champion itself has and how much damage it does. If Echo did not do the amount of damage he did after getting his items, he would not be here. Next, we have the newly released Kayn. I think Kayn needs more time to be shown where he should be, but from what I'm feeling after playing it multiple times, I think Kayn is A tier. What I do think Kayn needs though is I think he gets his blue form way too slowly. Red form, I think, is at a perfect spot in terms of how fast you can get it, but when it comes to blue form, it takes too long, unless you're just getting a lot of early game kills, which is not really realistic, but it can happen. You get a lot of early game kills on ADC supports that have to be ranged, by the way, and you can probably get blue form on a good game in like 8 minutes maybe, right? But then you could get red form just playing unga bunga da 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 in like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, right? So the way I ranked Kayn's forms is I think red is better than blue, because you can get red a lot easier, which means you can get your power spike a lot easier, and it's more consistent. Now blue, you would have to be a better player to play blue, and you have to play blue in the right team comp, because blue is very squishy. If you make a mistake, you will kill yourself, and you're not very much help to your team when you're dead. Then again, you can one-shot squishies, but when you're playing into bruiser comps or something very tanky, you're not really doing too much. So just keep that in mind when you're really talking to yourself and be like, what form do I want to choose on Kayn? Just keep that in mind. Next up, we have Shyvana. After Shyvana's passive was changed And basically she got the passive where whenever she kills a big monster, she gets stacks that scale. And once she gets to that 400 mark, where she starts getting true damage off of hitting her E, that's when Shyvana really hits that like big power spike. And that was like a big problem with her, and why she was like super good, and like even started seeing competitive play. But then they have since nerfed Shyvana. I don't remember what the nerf was, but I know they nerfed Shyvana. I still think she's A tier. If you want to pick a good farming jungler, like just a good farming carry jungler, that is what Shyvana is. And yeah, she's A tier, stable, can be chosen, whatever. Next up we have Nunu. Come on, it's Nunu. Nunu is jungle on easy mode. He is jungle train wheels. Clear your camps, snowball through the river. Even if they see you, 9 times out of 10, if you knock them up, it is a kill. And if they don't see you, well, they're 100% dead. And in Wild Rift, high elo, people don't ward because high elo is too easy to get. So you can get a lot of easy kills, and through that you can carry the game. Even if you are a tank jungler, I think this is one of the best, if not the best, tank junglers in the game, and that is why Nunu is A tier. Next up we have Diana. Diana with Nash's Tooth build in the jungle is actually really good. You can also go the Rod of Ages build if you need to be tankier, however you'll be farming slower, so it's up to you. Again, with the jungle buffs, everyone can finish 3 camp, 4 camp before Scuttle even comes up. And now a lot of people are just full clearing anyway, so it doesn't even matter if you get the Scuttle, since they nerf Scuttle XP. So, yep, Diana, very good champion in general. Better in mid, but can be used in jungle if you really need that AP damage. And then next up we have Irelia. Irelia was a menace in the jungle. They nerfed it, and it did absolutely nothing. Irelia is still an insane jungler, and then I know I don't stress this enough, but after this patch, and then they made everything faster, every single jungle champion that was nerfed can all just go up a rank if their nerf was, damage to jungle. That's kind of counteracted when like jungle itself is now easier, right? So Irelia as a champion does so much damage. She has ganking potential. She has CC when she comes. If she has her R, she has a crazy slow, obviously crazy mobility and insane damage. And that is why Irelia is A tier. Next up we have Xin Zhao, one of the best, if not the best, level 3 jungles. Has a very good utility R. Can gank very easily and very confidently, and is a very nice skirmisher, so that's why he's A tier. Next up we have Fiora. I think Fiora could be behind Xin Zhao, but I guess the difference with Fiora is Fiora can hard carry the game, but Fiora's ganking potential just is not good. Level 5, sure, she can speed herself up, try and hit all the vitals, but Fiora, she doesn't have any CC. The only slow she has is on her W, and there's no way you're ganking and then instantly Wing somebody for the slow. Hello? 90% of people in this game have a dash or a movement speed skill, so they can run away from Fiora. But if you're able to get behind somebody and gank somebody as Fiora, then you can kill them quite quickly, and you can start snowballing the game. Next up we have Vi. I think Vi is really under the radar right now, but Vi does so much damage. You go Triforce or you go Sunderer build, and she does insane amounts of damage. And I think Vi her build path is just very flexible. She can go full tank Vi if she really wants to with Sunderer, and she can be a second tank with a insta-click CC button and get carried the game through that way, or she can go damage Vi, she can go Triforce, Death Stance, Bork if you really want the damage, Sterax, and she can carry the game through that way, just doing sheer damage to the enemy team. And on top of that, Vi has a great level 3 gank with her Q, and level 5, you already know she can click R and you are CC'd unless you are Ezreal, who can, for some reason, immune every stun in the game. And next up, we have at the top of A tier, we have Wukong. I think Wukong, after his Q buff, E buff and R buff is just really good, very good level 3. Yes, he doesn't have any CC for level 3 ganks, but what he can do is he has very good stick, and then on top of that, his Q heals him a lot. It does a lot of damage now. Make sure you auto attack cancel your E and Q, by the way, whenever you're jungling. And once he does hit level 5, he has the easiest gank in the game. Go to a lane, click E, click R. They're knocked up for 10 years. If your team doesn't kill them by then, just do it again. And, that's why I think he's at the top of A tier. He's very easy to play, very beginner friendly. And yeah. Next up, we have S tier. These are the insane champions, and I know this is what everybody is waiting for. So first up in S tier, we have Riven. Riven is a very strong jungler. I think she is a better jungler than she is in Baron lane right now. Although her Baron lane counterpart is good, just in the jungle right now. She has a good level 3 gank, very good level 3 damage. It's Riven. Good smite secure with her QR, very strong smite secure. And she can skirmish with just about everybody. I can't really think of a terrible matchup for Riven besides maybe Olaf. But other than that, I think Riven is just a very good champion in the jungle. Moving on, we have Morgana, who is another one of those intro level junglers that can be brought up, with how much skill you have. I do have a Morgana guide that you can go look at. Morgana has one of the fastest clears in the game. She can double take Gromp and Blue, take Wolves, and then double take Red and Raptors at the exact same time. Okay, this is after editing Saltini here. So my girlfriend actually just brought to my attention that Morgana can't double clear Blue and Gromp anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't recall them changing anything about that in the patch notes. Then I wanted to practice and I tried it myself, and it's actually true. I don't know what's wrong with the aggro, but Morgana cannot clear Gromp and Blue at the same time, and that's a really big part of her early clear. That's one of the reasons that makes it so fast. So due to that, I'm actually going to bring it down to A tier rather than S tier. Next up, we have Jace. Jace is just very strong. What makes him strong in the jungle is also what makes him very strong in mid lane. It's what makes him very strong in the Baron lane. His numbers are strong. He's just a strong character. So Jace could arguably be S+, but for right now, I think I'm just going to leave him at S. His gank potential is not anything insane, but, EQ, use the speed boost to, hop on top of the enemy that you're ganking. You can E-flash and hammer form to push them back if you really need to, but Jace has insane early game. He scales alright. It's not anything insane, but, your EQ will still hurt throughout, the entire game. And yeah, there's not really too much more to say about Jace. Just a very strong champion off of just numbers wise and abilities. Next up we have Camille, which before this patch I would have had in A tier or B tier because of how many nerfs Camille has just gotten. Back when she would E start, I feel like that was Camille's best iteration. She could use the attack speed. They took that away, then people would W start, then they lowered the damage, then now people Q start, and even with that, they lowered the damage on Q. So Camille has been hit with nerf after nerf after nerf. They also nerfed the duration of her R, and I think they increased the damage but lowered the scaling, something like that. I don't remember. But what Camille still has is once she hits level 5, it is a E, click R on whoever you want to kill, and hopefully your teammate does enough damage. Now, thanks to this update, Camille can clear faster, so now she can balance clearing the jungle with ganking and not just being a spam ganker. So that way she can put pressure on the map while also being ahead in gold, that way she can carry the game easier. Don't get me wrong, Camille does scale very well, but Camille is not what I think when I think of 1v9. When I think of 1v9, I think Riven can probably 1v9 easier than Camille can, because what Camille's main damage is her enhanced Q, and she has to Q, wait a couple seconds, then enhanced Q, then wait for the cooldown to come back, Q, and you know what I'm saying? So it's not really something that I would say is 1v9 worthy, but it is an insane champion that does a lot of damage, and it also brings the freest gank ever. EE, click R on whoever you think will potentially die, and it's easy. Next up, we have Yone. I didn't even check what Yone was nerfed on this patch. All I know is that it did absolutely nothing. Yone is a broken champion, and he is arguably S+. In fact, I think I will make him S+. Yone is so broken right now. He is just retarded. He does hybrid damage, so it doesn't matter what you build against him. You're gonna need to build both resistances, and on top of that, Yone can gank very easily. He has 3 dashes. His R is a pushback and a knockup. His Q is a knockup. He has insane scaling and can one-shot anybody who gets hit by R. If you dodge his R, you can still get one shot, which is insane. And that is why I think Yone is actually S+. I just moved him up from S. I don't know what I was thinking putting him that low. I think he's an insane champion. I think he's just absolutely broken right now. Moving on, I have Gragas in S. After Gragas got his very unneeded buffs for some, why did we buff Gragas again? He is the one of the best AP junglers in the game. Gragas has good ganks. You can body slam, R, enemy back, and you'll most likely just one shot them by yourself. But if you need a team, there's that. He can also be flexible in his build path, because you can go Rod of Ages into full tank if you want to. I wouldn't do that in the jungle, but you can. It's an option. But you normally just want to go full DPS and just one shot whoever steps out of line. When it comes to dragons, he can ult everybody away from the dragon, go in and smite it. And yeah, Greg's just really strong. Has damage reduction on his, is it E or W? Not sure. Whichever one is the one where he gets drunk, his damage reduction on that. So he can also be very quite tanky and hard to take care of. Next up, we're moving into the S+, where I just recently moved up Yone. Evelyn. Evelyn will probably forever be S+, unless they giga nerf her, and I still don't think that will matter. They have nerfed everything about Evelyn, but inside of a solo queue environment, Evelyn thrives. And on top of that, in North America, where we play, people don't use wards anyways, so why would they track the jungle when there are no wards? They don't think, oh, Evelyn was red side and cleared all the way to blue, so she might gank us. That's not what they think. So Evelyn, with one of the fastest clears in the game, if not the fastest, will clear the jungle very fast to get a scuttle, hit level 5, and then gank the duel and get 2 kills, and now your game is over. And on top of that, Evelyn has the strongest smite secure in the game. If she hits E on the dragon, and then, sorry, my bad. If she hits W, charm on the dragon, and then E's smites, it is the strongest damage in the game. I think that is about a 1.7 thousand smite. And if she R's on top of that, GG, you're not getting that. It is stronger than Kha'Zix. It is just insane. Sure, it takes a little more setup, but the amount of value you get from that is crazy. What does put her down here, though, is I think in the early game, without her R, if you mess her R up, it is harder to kind of snowball it. Obviously, you can still gank without your R, and your ganking is still all right, but it's not like her early game damage is not anything insane. It's not Lee Sin, nothing like that. So you do want to keep your R. Your R is on a very long cooldown. I think it's the longest in the game, actually, for a jungler. So just, manage your R, make sure you're hitting the right people, and if you get 1 or 2 kills in the early game, it's kind of solidified and you can carry off of that. Just play it right on Evelyn and you can 1v9. Next up, we have Olaf. Olaf is just what you want to pick when you see a lot of CC, obviously. Olaf just counters a whole status effect in the game. You click CC, I click R, you lose. You pick a tank, I do 2 damage, you lose. You pick a squishy, I still do enough damage, you lose. So, on top of this, Olaf goes Death's Dance, goes Triforce, so he's doing all this damage to you while lifestealing, and you can't kill him. And it's not like you're going to stop Olaf because he is CC immune. So Olaf is just an insane champion. He is very easy to play, very entry level, and you can get free LP playing this character, and this is something that I usually will ban. Next up, we have the newly released Aatrox, which I also think is S+ in both Baron and in the jungle. So what I think about Aatrox is it's kind of like Riven if Riven snorted crack every single year of her life. So he has the same concept as Riven, except he has CC on every single Q. His R is insane, and his lifesteal is insane. He doesn't have as strong as a Smite Secure as Riven, I would say, but everything else is basically just better. So that is why Aatrox is S+. He has insane sustain and crazy damage, and should be banned every single game. Next up, we have Gwen, who is, I think she's a little less popular now after she got slight jungle nerfs, but honestly, I feel like she goes under the radar a lot, and which makes kind of no sense to me considering Gwen can hard carry a game so very hard. I think this is one of the farming jungles that just goes crazy. I shouldn't really call her a farming jungle, but she's not a spam ganker. She's not insane ganking. No CC, nothing to really lock down the opponent when you're ganking. I mean, you have R, which will slow them, but it's not anything like super crazy. So once you do start to get items, you can 1v1 basically every single character in the game. And if you're consistently hitting R's through everybody on the enemy team, you're just shredding them with true damage. Her lifesteal is insane. When she uses her W, the Hollowed Mist, nobody outside of it can hit her. So she has good dragon fights, good damage. She doesn't have a strong Smite Secure, but it's still better than some of these other champions. So what really brings Gwen up this high is she can just fight a lot of champions in the game, and even if they do want to go something really tanky, build magic resist, it doesn't matter because she does true damage and she'll out-sustain them. Next up, we have Lee Sin and Kha'Zix. Now, I think these are the 2 best junglers in the game to this day. I also think they're interchangeable. If you think Lee Sin is better, I'm not going to hold you on that. If you think Kha'Zix is better, I'm not going to hold you on that either. So first off, I'm going to start off with Kha'Zix. So I think, personally for me, Kha'Zix is the best champion in terms of jungle in the game. He has arguably the fastest farm in the game, and I think he has the fastest solo carry potential. He can basically one-shot the enemy AD carry once he gets one item. His R makes him very slippery. His enhanced E makes him very slippery, which has a really long dash. He has a very strong steal, a good Smite Secure. He can take dragons the fastest in the game. He can counter jungle very well, and even though he doesn't have anything crazy for ganking, he can get on top of the ADC, and if he does get early kills, he will snowball very hard. So moving on to Lee Sin. Lee Sin has been on top of S+, ever since his release. Lee Sin has never been bad, and he never will be bad. That's just how I see it. I don't think Lee Sin will ever be anything below A tier, let alone, bad, B tier, C tier, D, anything. Lee Sin has an insane early game, crazy tempo, good farming, good stick potential, movement, insane damage on Q. You can auto attack, cancel his W. His E also reveals things like Akali. It can reveal Kha'Zix, Evelynn from their invisibility, so he doesn't have too many problems against those champions unless they just out damage him. His R does an insane amount of damage, and they buffed that for whatever reason. And even though he doesn't exactly scale into the later game, Lee Sin is not like, it's not like Pantheon. He doesn't just completely fall off into absolutely nothing. He is still a really strong champion, and that is why I think Lee Sin and Kha'Zix are at the top of S tier. And I feel like that's really, I wouldn't say it's undeniable, but I can see a couple champions like being argued to be better than them, like maybe Aatrox, Olaf, Gwen. With Lee Sin, you have the tempo for the early game, and then you can carry hard. If you get that early lead, you'll do so much damage. You have a pretty good smite secure. You can steal things because you can Q onto the dragon, kick the enemy jungle away, and steal it away. You can deny the invisible champions. There's just so much that Lee Sin brings to the table on top of just his damage in the early game. And of course, again, he doesn't fall off that hard. He does fall off, don't get me wrong, but it is nothing like Pantheon, like I said. And this is my jungle tier list. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I gave a pretty in-depth explanation about everything and my kind of like thoughts on it. And if you guys have any disagreements or you think you would have put something else in a different spot, please tell me down in the comments and just let me know what you think about it. Of course, this is my opinion, and you guys can all have your own opinions. So please get mad down below. I'll see you guys in the next video, and it's Saltini, and I am out.